so this here is my bronze NCORE 100 Max build that I've been using for the past couple of weeks now. And I think that right now, if you're thinking of assembling a new PC anytime soon, this is a new option you might want to consider. So I was super curious about this one since there aren't many cases that look like this that really fit in that home theater style PC like, a PS5. So I had a few questions that I wanted to answer. What are the thermals gonna look like? How much space is this gonna take up on my desk? How difficult is it to build in? And what's being offered from the value perspective? Now there's a lot going for it right off the bat. Cooler Master is selling this as a kit, just like the NR200P Max and the NZXT H1. You're getting a 120 millimeter liquid cooler, an 850 watt gold rated ATX 3.0 power supply, plus custom length cables, a PCI Gen 4 riser, and the case itself for $380 in the US. It's listed right now on Amazon and for some reason has a 3-pack sticker. Anyways, if you have been considering shrinking down your build for this year and don't really want to deal with any of the hassle of needing to manage part compatibility, the AIO and power supply are already installed for you. Now the case itself actually only takes up about a footprint as big as a Mac Mini, about 15% smaller, but it does so by greatly increasing its vertical space. Like, this is a tall case. There's 15.7 liters of volume, so you can technically fit those massive power-hungry GPUs that have always been a struggle with these smaller cases. Cooler Master is offering the NCORE 100 Max in a dark gray and bronze edition, and honestly, I really like it. It's supposed to offer A+ performance, a rock-solid build experience, and be, in their own words, a revolutionized NR200P Max, which was already considered an MVP of ITX cases. And it seems pretty good. I just wanted to test this thing out fully before transferring over my whole system. All right, so getting into the build process itself, super flexible, like really simple. Honestly, probably one of the easiest PCs I've ever assembled. The entire design uses these mesh-filtered anodized aluminum panels that can expand to fit larger cards and doesn't require any tools to adjust. Now there are a few minor nitpicks I have overall and some considerations you'll have to make if you are interested in picking one of these up. But first I want to show you the actual build. For the CPU, I've gone with just a classic choice for the past year with Intel's 13600K. You get a ton of bang for buck with these. I was able to pick this up for under $300 and targeting that 1440p sweet spot is gonna be no problem. The board we're actually gonna be using to build all of this is the ROG Strix B760i from ASUS. I have pretty much stuck with this board for the past year, covers essentially anything you need. There's dual M.2 slots, Wi-Fi 6E, solid I/O, and it has all the fundamentals for a gaming build. Now, the only thing I would change with this setup is upgrading the stock Intel frame. You can pick up these Thermalright contact frames for like 10 bucks on Amazon, and you'll get even better coverage with the cooler on the IHS. Then for storage, nothing super complicated. Again, I picked up a stick of Crucial P3. You can get these for about 50 bucks for a terabyte or 100 for 2. You want to pop it in at an angle. Also, pro tip, if you end up adding additional storage in the future, there's a second M.2 slot on the back. Now onto memory, I went with DDR5 because at this point you cannot go wrong with the pricing. 32 gigs, 6,000 megahertz, 100 bucks. All right, so getting on to the actual case. There is an included accessory box, which is where you'll find everything you need for the install. First thing I like to start with is mounting the hardware for the AIO. There's different brackets for Intel and AMD, but in our case, we're gonna be working with the LGA 1700 socket. There's a bracket for the motherboard, and then you have these here, which are for the actual block. At this point, installing the motherboard is really simple. We just need to use these included case screws and just line up the IO shield with the case, slide in the motherboard, and secure it down. From here, I like to plug in our front IO cables. Also, don't forget to run the riser cable under the motherboard so you can actually slot it into the slot. So now for front IO, I'm gonna take this bundle of cables here and get them a little organized just to make things easier. First thing we'll do is the front panel connector right here, then the USB 3.1, which goes right next to it, and then we'll do the purple USB connector. And finally, after that, the HD audio, which goes all the way over here. And now we can go ahead and plug in the power supply cables. There's the 8-pin CPU connector in the top left, and then you have that big 24-pin motherboard connector on the side. And remember that these connectors might be located in different areas if you are using a different board, so just check out your manual if you're having any trouble. All right, so for the CPU cooler, we have to mount these brackets on with the included Phillips screws, and then we can go ahead and add some thermal paste. Also, don't forget to remove the film on the block itself, and just mount it on and tighten it all evenly. From there, we can go ahead and plug in the pump header from the AIO, and after that, plug in the remaining fans right next to it. So at this point, we're almost completely done assembling. all that's left is the actual GPU. I believe we spent around $1,000 so far, so that leaves any additional budget allocated for the GPU. I understand that a lot of people immediately throw insane hardware in here, and Cooler Master has accounted for this. You can fit a variety of massive 4090 cards in here. 3-slot width cards should fit. You can actually extend the width of the case if you need some extra space. But as for today, we're going with an RTX 4070. If you are on a tighter budget and want to save some cash, I'd recommend checking out some deals. Used hardware on eBay, there's a bunch of 3080s and you might be able to snipe a deal. So you get the latest DLSS, frame generation, and a bit more of a manageable form factor. So installation's a breeze. I have the Founders Edition here. Just plug in the other end of the riser cable, tighten down the bracket. If you do want to clean up a couple cables, not a bad idea. Lastly, plug the GPU power cable in. Our power supply has a native plug, so you don't need to use any sort of adapter. And we're done. I think it came out looking pretty sick. I've built a good amount of systems in the past, and nothing has really beat the simplicity of this package. Of course, none of that necessarily matters if this thing has awful thermal performance. So next up is actually getting it up and running, installing Windows, your drivers. And I will tell you, here are the few nitpicks I have. Initially, upon powering it all up, the stock fan config and PSU fan did generate a bit of noise. Nothing insane by any means, but I did have to make some adjustments to suppress most of that system noise. I also ran into some pump noise. It sounded like there was some air bubbles in the loop. It did end up settling after a bit, but I still have found that the stock NR200P Max and the H1 seem to be quieter. Now, as for performance and thermals, using the complete stock configuration, the 120mm liquid cooler and a 4070, we're looking at pretty solid numbers. About low 60s on the 4070 and mid to high 60s on the 13600K in Furmark. Also, really good performance in 1440p, no issues there. The GPU has a ton of room to breathe since the design of this case allocates so much dedicated space. Where it struggles a bit is the smaller 120mm rad. It's 40mm thick, and Cooler Master is custom making these. So it seems like a bit of a limitation for those higher end CPUs. I don't think this is gonna fare that well with something like a 13900K. Even though they claim it should be fine, if you're throwing in something a little lower power, you shouldn't run into any cooling capacity trouble. You know, there might be concerns whether or not you'll be able to replace this cooler down the road since it is custom made and you can't really easily fit other coolers here. But yeah, once you get used to plugging in your display cables under the case and having the IO at the bottom, they really should have included a 90-degree adapter. I can say that I'm pretty happy to report that performance has been solid. Of course, there are caveats to this package you have to consider. A lot of people have been asking for an ITX case that can deal with larger hardware without compromising too much, and this is really Cooler Master's attempt at solving this. It's not quite there yet. I think this is still gonna be a hit. It caters to first-time builders, from the pre-routed cables to the absurd amount of space you get to work with while assembling. I think that for the money you're spending, if you're into this interesting look and make the CPU considerations, this might be a consideration for the future. So hope this guide was of assistance. Please let me know if you have any questions down below. I'll leave all the discounted links in the description also. And big thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.